Hello, everybody. Today I'm having the pleasure of interviewing a dear friend of mine, Lora Cantele. And there's lots of things I could tell you about her. And one of them is that she does not talk about herself a lot. So I always get surprised of all the things she does. And she's actually one of the biggest supporters, not only of me, but of many people. So she usually talks about other people, not herself. So I'm going to be very gentle about introducing her. Lora is a clinical aromatherapist, an aromatherapy writer, educator, and international speaker. Her areas of specialties include hospice, palliative care, and children with special needs, which is very rare, actually. And the reason I asked her today to do this interview is because in Dropsmith, we quote her wonderful book and her wonderful journals. So today we're going to talk about that a little bit. And first, let me ask you about how you got started in aromatherapy. Let's just get that way. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Well, that's very nice. So I got started, like I think a lot of aromatherapists got started. For me, I was in 2 car accidents a year apart from each other, and I was injured in the same way in both. And I had so much back pain that I couldn't sit in a chair for a very long period of time. And I had a friend who knew an aromatherapist from, another job that he had worked. And he had asked her to make some massage oil blends for me for back pain that he could give to me for my birthday. And they worked really, really well. And I had never really heard about aromatherapy at that point in my life. But then a few months later, my son, who was a newborn, he wasn't sleeping and I wasn't sleeping, and I was ready to throw him out of a window. And my best friend was at a bookshop, and she found this little oil called Lullaby, and it had, sweet marjoram and chamomile and lavender in it, and a little bit of tangerine, I think, perhaps. And she gave it to me and said, maybe this will help both of you sleep. And so I put a little bit on a cotton ball in the corner of his crib, and he was sleeping and I was sleeping. And then one day my husband and I decided to move our apartment all around. And in doing so, I noticed for the first time that the label on the massage oil and the label on the Lullaby, the logo was the same. And I was like, I need to find out who the person is that made this stuff so I can go talk to them. So my husband and I did. Her name is Chris Reed, and she's a natural perfumer. And she had studied with Michael Scholes, and she had us into her little olfactory factory, and I got to see how she made her products and do all of her blending. And she talked to us all about aromatherapy. And I remember leaving her apartment, which was, so aromatic and so lovely. And I thought, this is the best kept secret ever. I need to tell everybody about it. And so I, at the time I had started a little at-home business where my clientele were generally men who would get invited to weddings and didn't know what to do with that wedding list.
Oh, wow.
And so they would call me, and I would take the wedding list, and I would have a budget, and I would go buy something on the list and embellish it, decorate it, wrap it, and deliver it. And then I decided that, what? I think I want to just focus on aromatherapy and her products. So I changed it to a gift basket business where I used all these natural baskets made from mango leaves and willow, branches and stuff, and just put aromatherapy in it. And I invited Chris to come do house parties, and it was all great until I moved to the country. And then people were like, you want us to pay how much for what? And I was like the witch of Woodstock. This was some kind of voodoo, it was witchcraft. It was weird. And so I thought, okay, well, now I need to be more credible. And so I studied at the American College of Healthcare Sciences. At that time, it was known as the Australasian College of Healthcare Sciences. And I finished there. And then I started making my own products. And then one thing led to another. Opportunities present themselves. And my summer class was in France with Len and Shirley Price. And I became really good friends with them. Shirley's like my mom. And I had them come and teach in America in 2005. And Shirley asked me for my resume because she wanted me to come work for them. And I ended up opening up a satellite school of her daughter's academy in Chicago. And I was selling penny priced oils. And after becoming a board certified tutor for her, I did that for a while. And I still teach Aromaflexology for Shirley Price. And, and then I just became a sponge. I started going to conferences and classes, and, my continuing ed numbers are through the roof because it's just, you know what it's like. It's infectious. You become a sponge, you learn everything. You want to meet more people and network. And so that's what you do. So that's how I got started. And that's what kind of continues to drive me, is just that want of knowledge.
So I guess then we skip to your journal. This is a very old issue because I'm also a very old aromatherapist. Do you want to show a new? And I'm also a very thorough sponge. I have my favorite parts. It's called, if you don't know and you should know, it's the International Journal of Professional Holistic Aromatherapy. How did that get started? I'm guessing part of your spongy journal, and you wanted a journey, and you wanted to share the knowledge, and you saw some loopholes. just from my personal experience and how I created Dropsmith from kind of that space.
You're kind of right. So how that started was, so I'm a co-founder of the Alliance of International Aromatherapists here in the US. And after being with them for, I started with them in 2005 before they were actually known as the Alliance. And then in 2012, I took a break from the AIA. And in that time, it's like you go from being busy to like not being so busy. It's like, what do I do? And I kind of just looked around me and I thought, there's a lot of people like me who have been aromatherapists for more than, at that time, it was more than 10 years. And, we wanted continuing education that was different, because going to conferences, a lot of the conferences, the lectures were geared more towards new aromatherapists or, people who've been doing it for a few years. And there really wasn't much for people that had been an aromatherapist for at least 10 years. And I had, I had started working on a journal for AIA at the time. Nancy D'Angelo, another of our co-founders and probably the actual original member, Nancy really wanted the organization to have a journal. And, there's a lot of issues that go into having a journal. Do you do it online? Do you do it in print? How's it going to be paid for? And all of that. So I put together a prototype shortly before I left. And then when it didn't take off with AIA at that time, I mean, of course they have a journal now, but it didn't take off at that time, mainly because it was a transitional year, and they needed a committee to pick it up and run with it. And so I thought, I have so many people in this industry that I've met, all over the world, and really great educators. And there are a lot of people who speak to me personally about things that I really want to know about as a person who's been doing this already for 10 years. There's new things. And I thought, why don't I just do my own journal and kind of bring together a lot of these people in my network to write for this journal. I am so fortunate that I have a really terrific team of peer reviewers, because we wanted to be a peer-reviewed journal. And when I did it, I wanted each copy to be like a class. So we don't really focus on essential oils. Like this one you'll see is on Monarda oil. Not very many people know or use Monarda oil. So we always choose oils that are not necessarily in the mainstream. And we do that for two reasons. We do it because, when you look at the whole conservation, the area of conservation consciousness and the demand for oils, so many of our oils are becoming endangered or threatened or near threatened. And there's so many oils out there that are more available, but because they're lesser known, they're underused. And so we wanted to bring those oils into light. And in doing that, like when we first started with our journals, each one, like I said, would be a classroom. It would focus around an oil, and it would look at its dominant chemical components. And then there would be case studies surrounding the use of that oil, and then other related things about, you know, business and professionalism. And, you know, we tackled hydrosols and carriers and so forth. But the journal has like really evolved since then. And we are now, when we started out, we were more holistic. We are still a very holistic journal, but we are now including many more clinical research studies and case studies. And, you know, just the quality. And I think we're growing as the people who started with us grew, you know, because at that time, maybe our readers were people like me who had been doing it for 10 years. But, you know, I started in 2003, you know, we're in 2021. So I think as the longer I've been doing this, the longer some of these people have been doing it, the more advanced we're trying to be with the journal in the information that we bring. We still focus on oils that are lesser known, but we also, you know, try to include much more research than we did in the beginning. And a step, like with the journal, we've also created another step in that we do what we call our educational vacations. And in the time before COVID, I would host an expert in an area. It could be, we've had Robert Tisserand speak, we've had Marco Bellucci, Madeline Kirchhoff. You know, they would come to Colorado where I live, and I would make arrangements with the local businesses, and our people would stay in, you know, nice hotels, some with, you know, like residential kitchens if they needed it for a longer stay. And we would have these great advanced classes that people could take. And then the local businesses would give me stuff to give my students, so they could also learn a little bit more about Colorado and take advantage of some of the lovely things we have to offer here. So they were more like educational retreats or vacations. So a lot of it is focused on advanced stuff. Although I have to say, one of the things that I think I'm really proud of with the journal is that we can take the more heady issues, the clinical, the harder stuff to dissect, and we distill it down in a way that any level of whatever your education level in aromatherapy, you can understand it. You know, we try to speak to the student as well as the seasoned professional.
One of the things for people who don't buy journals or don't know they exist, or they're not sure if it's for them, one of the things I always point out, and I think it's very important, that in these aromatherapy journals, we have case studies, and they're very, very, it's a very rare information to come across in any other media that's communicated in aromatherapy. You get really, like you said, when you say clinical studies, you actually mean, for those people who don't really know what to expect when they hear that, you mean people give out their recipes and how they used aromatherapy on their clients, on their patients. So this is very rare information, because we can go very, very specific on how to apply oils.
It's a blend. I mean, we do have case studies. That is our #1 requested. Whenever I do a survey and I ask what people want, they want to see and read more case studies. And it doesn't matter if your case study was successful or not, because even if it's not, that's good information to know why, and reflect on that. And what would you do different? I mean, we're all in here learning from each other. So we have case studies. We've also done case series. We've done clinical studies, and then we've done other types of research. There's a whole blend in there. But you're right. I mean, people do share their formulary in the articles so that you've got something to work with, you know, to give it a try. And I'm always encouraging people to share. In fact, we did a whole issue on the importance of research. And the most beautiful thing about this issue is that when we do peer review, it's double-blind. So the reviewers don't know whose paper they're reviewing, and the author doesn't know who reviewed them. And they don't know who else is involved. And in this one issue, I had a peer reviewer quoting another person who was providing peer review, who was quoting somebody who had written an article. And it was all like so intertwined and with such a beautiful message of, let's really add to this pool of knowledge. Everybody know, it doesn't matter if you did a little case study on how you treated your child's acne or, you know, your husband's toenail fungus to whatever. I mean, everybody's got something that they can share. And if you share a case study about headache and I share one and 3 more aromatherapists do, we can all compare what worked for each of us and what didn't. And we all learn from that. So I think it's great that you mentioned the case studies, because that's probably the best part of the journal is that sharing of knowledge from each other.
Yes, and it's from many different people and different perspectives. And like you said, then peer reviewed. So it's a really special piece of information, very quality, you know, as opposed to lots of Google out there. But we will not go into that. We will talk about your book. You're also, another thing we quote here in Dropsmith is your book that you're a co-author. And I hope we can switch this so you can see actually. The title is Complete Aromatherapy and Essential Oils Handbook of Everyday Wellness. It's a very thick book. And if you didn't know, almost every student of mine, well, in every group, I would have somebody bring it. And I say, yeah, I know her, you know.
That's cool.
It's really great book. It's for everybody, but I've noticed with my students for beginners, because it's really complete aromatherapy. And when they don't know where to start, they have tons of recipes. But also, I to be completely honest, I looked at it a while back for some recipes, for ideas to start my own. So it's a wonderful book. Do you want to say how that came about and what you added to it? And
actually, so Neris Perchan, who is my co-author, had sadly left us some time ago, and her estate wanted the book to be republished, and they had sold it to a publisher in Canada. And the Canadian publisher really wanted to reprint it, but they wanted to make sure that it was current. And so that's how I got involved. They wanted me to work with the material that was already there. And, you know, it's really funny, when I was going through the book, I realized that Neris Perchan was probably one of my first teachers when I didn't even know that. And I didn't know who she was. Because as I said, I went to the Australasian College of Healthcare Sciences, and a lot of the material I was reading in the book, there were some key things in the book that I thought, wait a minute, I remember learning this in school. And then I went back and found that Neris, who's from Australia, was, I don't know if she was a contributor or if they used her as a reference, but a lot of her material was actually incorporated into the program as a base point, which was kind of cool because I was already familiar with it. But what I did, you know, as we know, there's a lot of aromatherapy books out there that take the same information, they rearrange the words, and they put it out in a fresh new cover. And I didn't want that. So I looked at the book and thought, all right, let's get rid of everything that we know now to be a myth. And if we know a better way of doing something, let's put that in there. So it's kind of it was a big revision of the original book. And then I added some new sections in there. And for me, you know, even though I've been doing this a long time, I still feel like I want to double check myself. And I know a lot of other aromatherapists do that too. So I tended to go to a number of books. You know, I might go to a Len Price's book about carrier oils or hydrosols. I might go to Suzanne Caddy's, you know, book about hydrosols, and start thinking about how I'm going to put something together, somebody, or I might already have an idea of what I'm going to do, but I feel like I kind of want to check it against what others have done, because we learn from each other, right? And I got tired of having to pull all these books out. So I wanted something that would be for someone brand new to aromatherapy, as well as the seasoned professional who just wanted a quick reference and didn't want to go look at a bunch of books. And so the book is laid out in such a way that, you know, there's some basic information, and then there's profiles of essential oils. And then I added a section on hydrosols or hydrolat. and totally beefed up the section on carrier oils. And then there's, you know, some safety tips in the margin. There's cautions where you need to be worried about a caution with a particular oil. And then I like how Melanie is like doing the whole Carol Merrill thing on The Price is Right here. And then when you get to there's a section in there that's A to Z of different conditions. And what I like about this is, especially for the learner, is that after it names the condition, it gives you a little bit of there's a little discussion about what that actually is. And then there's a list of oils that can be beneficial. And even though I do include recipes there, if you don't have something in the recipe, at least you know what you can swap out for, because that's already been identified. And then there's step-by-step instructions for a variety of ways to create.
Just jump in here. It's very variety. I just opened laundry and, you know, smelly shoes. So you really, you know, have information on everything.
On everything. Well, it does cover conditions, but we also have a section on travel, a section on babies and children, first aid, and around the house. So it covers different areas of your life. It's all there. But I really like that there's like the step-by-step instructions are there, but these are methods that, like, for example, I am not going to give you instructions on how to use aromatherapy for in a way that it doesn't apply. Like, for example, like somebody will stub their toe and they'll say, smell this. It's like, no, you want a topical application at the point of pain. You don't want to just smell something. I mean, the smell is good. It'll distract you from the pain. But if you really want to help start the healing, you really want to make up something topical to apply to your pain. So all of the recipes and their application methods are geared to that condition and the best way to treat it. And then, you know, when I first started out, it was really hard to get people to tell me where to buy oils, where to find equipment, so there's a whole resource section in there on where you can find things online. But the bulk of the book was intended to allow you to make things that you could easily find in a grocery store or health food store, so that you didn't have to go online at all or go into a specialty shop. And that's the beauty of the book, is it was meant to just, you know, just be there even as a mother's helper. And then there's loads of information in the back about different organizations worldwide and where you can get additional information in schools and so forth. So I really wanted one book to be kept in the kitchen, not in the office, but in the kitchen, that if you needed a quick reference, it was right there. And all of your stuff was right there in your kitchen. So that's how
I loved quoting it, because I have some specific books from other authors that they're specialized, I don't know, in palliative care or in, you know, cosmetics or whatever. But this one covers, like you said, such a variety.
It's all in there together.
And and as I did Dropsmith from scratch, I was actually literally me going through it, quoting it. So very thoroughly read it again, and it was a pleasure. Can we expect some new books on the horizon?
We can. I can't promise exactly when they will be released, but you know, my area of specialty in aromatherapy is working with kids with special needs. I worked in a palliative care home for children with life-limiting illnesses, and I work with kids with autism and you know, other special needs. And so I've been approached to write a book on that but the hang up for that was, is it for parents or is it for therapists? And I finally landed on the audience being for therapists, because as a mother of a child with autism, I know parents are going to read it anyway and they'll benefit from it. So, you know, bearing that in mind, but I have a start on that one. And I'll be speaking on the topic. You know, some of my articles on that have been published, but I'll be speaking, you know, at an upcoming conference on that. I've done that in the past with others. So that's one book. And, you know, I've kind of been bugged by my colleagues for probably, if I were to say it's been a few years, they'll probably hit me over the head and say it's been decades. But I tend to create cocktails and food items and things with, you know, essential oils, hydrosol teas, herbs, and, you know, incorporate things like vinegars and shrubs and stuff like that. So I've been working on a book called Enhanced Entertaining, and it's all tips and apps for entertaining and for you to show off to your friends that you can make enhanced flavored drinks and foods that you can show off. And then, you know, there's a couple more in there. I mean, I've been approached about writing a textbook. And so I have, there's that book that I'm kind of taking a look at doing with a co-author. And then there's another special one, which I'm not really going to reveal much about, but it's with a really well-known aromatherapy author who has the same passion as I do for something specific. So, you know, we're doing our research on it now. And when we get a little bit closer, we'll probably share that with you as well.
So this is what I'm talking about. You don't brag about yourself at all. You like mention, oh, and then I'm going to do this book and that book. And it's like 4 or 5 books you mentioned there. And I don't know which one is more important. I mean, I think the first one, it will be very, will contribute to a lot of people.
I'd also like to revise that book. I mean, I've been in touch with my publisher because I'd really like to revise that. I mean, that book came out in 2014. It's still, thankfully, and I'm very humbled by it, it's still very popular, but, you know, that was almost 7 years ago that it came out, and, you know, things change. We have new research, and I really want to get that into a new book. So, you know, that may be a direction I go in first. We'll see.
Anything else? I mean, a few books.
A few books. Well, actually, I'm working on an online class for Aromaflexology. Aromaflexology is not as well known as you know, massage therapy or reflexology, but back in the 80s, Shirley Price created a treatment protocol called Swiss reflex therapy, which, you know, Shirley herself is a certified reflexologist and aromatherapist and esthetician and so she wanted to create a hands-on treatment for aromatherapists. And so it isn't necessarily reflexology, although it does use the reflexes of the foot. It's more zone therapy combined with essential oils. And the name has since been changed from Swiss reflex therapy to Aromaflexology. And Shirley, you know, finally, she's talked about it in some of her books before with instruction, but she recently came out with her book on Aromaflexology. And there is quite a bit of interest in for practitioners to learn how to do this. So I've been speaking with Shirley, and we're planning on putting together an online course. We just have a few things that we need to work out with that. So that's another thing that's kind of in the works at the moment as well. And I think that's enough for me.
Very interesting. It's very interesting. All the things you do.
All the things.
Yeah, so one of the reasons I love to interview people we quote is so that people see this difference between, like you said, copy pasting the same content, and people with that are authentic, that search for that knowledge and then put it together in their specific way and share it. So I think our audience got to know you a little bit better and your work. So anything else we'd like to share about your work or direction?
No, but how about we talk about your work? Your work with Dropsmith, this beautiful platform for everybody to learn more about chemistry. And let's face it, chemistry is like the redheaded stepchild in the back of the room in aromatherapy class.
Yes. And I made it nice and pretty and colorful, so it can be
nice and pretty and colorful, accessible, and extremely useful.
So Lora has been one of my supporters from the beginning, and actually we weren't that close, and you just came up to me and I can help you this way, I can help you that way, would you? And it was very straightforward how you, I was like, okay, sure. I was just very overwhelmed always by your approach to helping, because there was not much sugarcoating, you know, and it it was wonderful and much needed, and I'm so grateful. So
Oh.
you can just share how you decided to support me, because you supported me from the very beginning.
Well, I mean, I think the Dropsmith platform, first of all, is something that's much needed. And you and I have had conversations before about, you know, there are gaps in our learning in aromatherapy. And this filled a much needed gap. And, you know, I could go on about, like, for me, I can tell you one of my first experiences using Dropsmith was when I was working at the palliative home. I had to provide GCMS of the individual oils. But then the question came, well, what about my blend?
Mm-hmm.
What is the overall? And I'm like thinking, great. So now I'm doing chemistry and I'm doing math, and I don't want to do either, right? But it was really easy for me to, because I could go back now. Like if I had to go back to that facility, it would be so much easier for me to do this now, because I have Dropsmith and I can drop in my oils and I can do my blends and I can get a new GC. But I think for anybody at any level of learning, just like I said, chemistry is a tough thing. And I tend to blend more by the chemistry of an oil than the therapeutic benefit than, ooh, is this going to smell good? And I think that comes from Shirley being my mentor, and that voice back here that says, doesn't matter what it smells like, you want to make them feel better, right? You know? And I'm like, yeah, but I want client compliance, so I want it to smell good too. And so, you know, being able to not only see what the chemical makeup of a blend is going to be, but the loads of research that's in there, as far as, you know, click on this chemical and learn about it and see all the research, or see how this is used for acne, and look at the books that are cited in the passage. I mean, it's amazing to me. It's like, it's a whole new world. It's like what the internet became for everybody else. You know, this became for aromatherapists. And how could I not want to be a part of that? I mean, it's broadening and expanding education. And I can tell you that before I was an aromatherapist, I was an interior designer. And even in interior design, I did it for the creative aspect, because I knew I wouldn't make much money painting, which is what I wanted to do, is just be an artist. And they're like, you have no life if you're an artist, you'll starve. And so I put the creative channel in interior design, but yet I still gravitated to the business side of things. And I always found myself, even in sales, being an educator. And I was a successful salesperson because I didn't ever ask anybody to buy anything from me. I gave them an education, and then they asked to buy from me. And I think that's always been a part of my makeup, is just being able to provide education. And if I can't provide it, I want to have resources that I can share, so I can tell other people so they can provide it. And I'm only too happy to recommend to people, you know, hey, I don't know everything, but this person, this is your go-to person. And I've always been that networking person that, and I remember this, I used to be part of a women's networking group, you know, for women entrepreneurs. And some of these women really just, I think they kind of missed the boat. We're all there to network and promote each other, but some of them turned that networking into a business. So it became, well, I'm happy to tell people you're an aromatherapist, but you're going to have to pay me X so that when I go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings, I can talk you up there. And I'm like, so wait, you're networking here to get money off of me to network me elsewhere. It doesn't work. I mean, I feel like in aromatherapy, there's two groups. There's the givers, and then there are those that nickel and dime you for every little bit of information. And I feel like I want to be in, and it's more comfortable to be in with all the givers. And I want to share. Like, I'm always thinking in the back of my head, I may have met somebody 3 years ago, but then I'll meet somebody yesterday who says, oh, I wish I knew somebody who does this. And I think, oh, I met somebody who does that. Let me connect you. And it's all about connection and education. And that's a really great representation of what Dropsmith is. And it's huge. It's global. It's anybody can get in it.
Yes.
And I just think it's a remarkable platform.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You said it all.
Well, I think it makes my life easier now because now I can go in and I can, you know, I can put together a makeshift GC of a blend and say to a hospital, well, this is what we're going to be using, and you have the MSDS sheets for all the oils, and it makes my life easier. It makes it easier for them because it's a lot less hoops to jump through.
That's how actually, in all honesty, that's how it shifted. Because I had a different idea, a more romantic one when I started creating this.
Don't we all?
Yes. Aromatherapy is so romantic, but then you come to the chemistry at one point. And because I worked with so many pharmacists and started working more and more with nurses in palliative care, and I saw how much time they were, well, in all honesty, wasting on going through research, but you know, you have to go through so much research to actually find something that could be useful. And these women didn't have time to do that. They loved the therapy part. And that's, I had that clearly in my mind when I was creating it, that I would like to save them time so they can be very specific, and then, okay, then go and read these reasons, but just those 5 or 10 or maybe 20, but the ones that are actually going to be useful for you, you know? Yeah, thank you for saying that.
It's funny when you say that we all had romantic ideas when we started, because it was the same way with my book. And can I tell you, a third of the manuscript I wrote for it was thrown out just because it was too much research. They were like, let's make this more a book on popular aromatherapy. And I'm like, no, I want to reach the professionals. And they're like, they won. So
it's sad. It's sad. But I also started aromatherapy for the art part of it. But then you just, like you said, cleaning the book, I also had to clean all the information that I learned. It just, you know, the things are going forward and you have to keep up with the times. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, so we can talk forever. But I don't know about our listeners. I hope you got to know Lora. And do you, what specific way do you want people to contact you if they want to get in contact with you and the things you do and offer?
So I have 2 websites. I have one for the journal, which is ijpha.com. Or I also have my aromatherapy practice, and that website is enhancementsaromatherapy.com. And you can contact me either way. I'm on Facebook. I've got a journal page. I've got my enhancements page, and there's a personal page there too. So I'm happy to talk to people. You know, however, if it comes to consultations, I'm one of those sticklers, like many others, that, you know, let's talk about intake forms and so forth. You know, I'm not one to don't call me to pick my brain. You know, I mean, I'm really happy to help people, but I want to do it in a knowledgeable and you know, educated and safe way. And so you know, my preference is, you know, I like to work with people within my practice, and I'm always happy to collaborate and consult. That's one of the things I'm doing now, is I'm offering business to business consultations for those in the aromatherapy community that are, you know, looking to get a jump start on their business. You know, so I'm fairly accessible. If you just Google me, you can find me anywhere on the internet. It's easy.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your information, and
thank you for having me. I know we've been meaning to do this for some time.
Yes, but you know, we're busy. Everybody creating new wonderful stuff. So thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed this interview, and to see you soon. Bye.
Bye.